I think we have
Good afternoon, Earth. This is Adam Sturch
we were
broadcasting
forest
from the
people.
Mushroom Mansion,
And
Taos,
we,
New
we
Mexico.
worship in
Continuing
the
with
woods,
oil painting
and
Space
we
Mountain.
relished and
Okay,
celebrate
the
nature.
black line work
We all
is
have a
pretty
sense of our
much
own
set up. It's
mortality.
still a little
And the
spongy, so I need
idea
to be
of an
careful.
afterlife is something that most cultures
But
share
I
in
have a
common.
very light pink, a
So
medium
the
pink, and
rise of
a
monotheism,
reddish pink
the belief in
mixed
one
for
God,
starting
and
the
other gods and
highlights of the figures in
and
the
this
clouds.
materialistic system of churches
So,
requiring
oh yes,
the
and
parishioners to give money to the church, so the church can build bigger buildings
in conclusion to
bigger,
my
congregations
random babbling
and then
yesterday
the
about Sophia and
of the
Egyptian
religious
mythology,
movement, by
it was the
right,
sun god
is
Ra
really
whose tears
causing
created
us
the
a
world,
lot
is
of
what I was
harm.
trying to
We need to celebrate
corner there.
our
But
diversity.
yeah, I think I got that somewhere in art history. But anyway, so here we go.
My mother's a charismatic Christian, and I love her dearly. And she's a good woman. And I think everybody on this planet, I would say 98% of the people on this planet, believe in the virtue of what is good. What, is, we want things that make us happier and healthier. We want our children to be happier and healthier. I think that's almost a universal. But putting those into practice is, I think, where we fail. And I had this epiphany, and this whole thing about the teaching evolution in the school, and whether evolution or intelligent design should be taught as on equal footings. And I had this epiphany, well, it makes perfect sense. Evolution is God's intelligent design. There's two things that we can accept. I think most religions will accept. We are incapable of comprehending the enormity of the concept of God. Whatever it is, we know that we're incomplete, and we can't even imagine the enormity of the concept. And two, we have evolved and were born from nature. And if we claim that we are intelligent, how could nature not be intelligent? And yet, if we acknowledge that our intelligence is inadequate to the concept of God, then we are still children in the ecosystem. And we should be extremely careful, because as we move forward in time and with our technologies, we are truly Neanderthals with nuclear weapons. We better step back, take a breath, look around, and consult with our microbial allies. We have to come into alliance with the microbes that have given us life.
Can you go into the spirit of forest people and the mushrooms that we ate to expand our...
Yeah, see, now we're starting to trespass into some private stuff that I'm not sure if I really want to go too far.
Okay, you don't...
I could talk about things that will really, really, really blow your mind.
I have to go back to the lighter, whiter pink on the foremost clouds.
I wish I were this, but my
This will get started.
sensitivity right now is,
I'd like these to be very light.
well, we have ceremony and ritual for helping us understand, religious concepts. And Native peoples, in particular, my limited familiarity with Native Americans, I would use that model and expand upon their knowledge base. One of the best things that I've ever heard from the Native American community was the concept of 7 generations. If we could, they should get the Nobel Prize for Communication if there was such a one, because this is something that I think that we all need to pay attention to. I hear nature screaming out to me, saying, "Wake up, don't you see? We are your allies, we are your friends, but you have been given a position of honor which is being abused." And I sense that we have become deafened to the voices of nature because of our technology, the immediacy of personal gratification, because of the fog of politics and war in the media. And that it's time for us to go back to nature. How many people, how many Americans have spent a night in the old growth forest? And then policies being dictated by people who've never spent a night in the old growth forest? You're supposed to be experts on subjects that you make decisions about. And if you aren't experts, your decisions are obviously inadequate to the task. I sense that the environment in which that has given us birth, so many of us need to go back you know, to experience that which our ancestors were very much a part of. And the disconnect that we have now is that we're speeding, you know, into obliviously into our own demise. Mushrooms have engaged us as vectors for transport. We transport spores. Every time that we shake hands, every time that we get in an automobile, every time we mail a letter, we're sending spore mass, you know, over great distances. Mushrooms realize that insects, which are animals, and animals are good ways of carrying spores to different locations. The spores are like dust or like pollen, you know, they can go over great distances. But oftentimes two spores have to come together before there's a mating, before there's a successful mushroom colony remote from the source of the parent mushroom. Well, something that I discovered, and other people discovered as well, which is fabulously interesting and fun, that anyone can do, is if you go into the woods and you find a mushroom that you like, you know, and obviously don't ever eat a mushroom without an expert identifying it, you know, that goes without saying, I think. But if you find a mushroom that you really want to cultivate, I found that when you pick the mushroom up, at the base of the stem are all these roots. And it's a miraculous property of these mushrooms that if you cut the stems, the stem base, the bottom of the mushroom, which everyone does before they eat them, they throw the stem base away. Well, guess what? The stem base regrows into mycelium. And so I thought about how is this? This is very interesting. It's like a proximity method for spreading the colony, not using spores. Well, then I thought, you know, deer and bear and all sorts of other animals, you know, raccoons and squirrels, voles, lots of animals eat mushrooms. So let's take the deer example. The deer come along, they see a mushroom, they love mushrooms, they bite the mushroom. They pull it up and they chomp on it, but they won't eat the dirt. What do? The base of the stem drops off as they walk away, falls into the ground, and it resprouts. And so stem butt inoculation methods, which is what we call them, is taking the butts of the base of the stem is an excellent way of propagating mushrooms and then allowing you to carry natural spawn from the woods and plant it in your backyard. Okay? And the book's full of that. The book has all the visuals.
What else I guess is, why don't we end with you briefing us and vision for how we should live?
Okay, yep, yep.
The kind of visuals would be sort of to the angry
Yeah, yeah.
what does that look like
Okay.
for us?
What I see as the solution, and I'm speaking from a mycocentric point of view, obviously I'm specialized in fungi, but from what I know thus far, with my limited knowledge, is I really believe that mushroom farms should be reinvented as healing arts centers for the communities. They're recycling all sorts of waste material for producing a medicinal or a food product that has great properties. But the enzymes that are present inside the straw and the sawdust and the other material they use, the compost, those enzymes are extremely powerful for breaking down toxic waste. We need to harvest those enzymes and those substrates that are fully myceliated with different species and then replant them in the outside ecosystems surrounding communities that need attention, that need to be healed. And by then integrating mushroom farms and cultivation facilities, and this is from micro cultivation facilities of a home grower in their backyard, you can customize and orchestrate mycological communities of mushrooms that are specific to the needs of your family, of your community, of the ecosystem, whether the issues are health-related, cancer, antivirals, antimicrobials, or whether you just need to build soil, preventing erosion. You know, you can take these mycelial mats, and these mushroom farms are producing hundreds of tons of this material per week, and they can't give it away. And it's right centered, oftentimes, around population communities of populations that are sorely in need of these. So I think in integrating these into permaculture systems, integrating these into Christian communities, Buddhist communities, this is an essential piece of the puzzle that is missing. And this essential piece of the puzzle can be a catalyst for a paradigm-shifting change for benefiting the future, and they work quickly and they can work now. Okay?
And it's 20. 2100.
Okay,
What do you want to tell those people?
okay.
Who don't know?
Okay, I'm speaking to generations way beyond my own lifetime. And I like to say that we tried.
Oh, is that a
Names,
baby
right?
cat? Which
What I would like
trying
to
to fuzzy?
tell future generations is to always remain children in your scientific curiosity and to explore nature to its greatest depths. Because we are a part of a natural system, we are children of nature, and in order for us to sustain ourselves into the future, we need to stay in that state of bewilderment, of amazement, of curiosity, of passion, of sensitivity to the health needs of everyone around us. So my path has been the mycelial path, and I know it fairly well. There's so much more that I need to know, and I'm hoping that future generations can pick up the torch and pass it on.
Thank you.
Welcome. And Rupert is here to give 3 days of teaching on our course at Schumacher called Mind in Nature. Is nature totally mechanical, or is mind suffused throughout nature? I think you can probably guess the answer. At least our answer. And Rupert has been coming to the college from the very beginning. We were just talking about when his first visit was with his young family in May 1991. And he's been supporting the college ever since, coming to teach on short courses and then on our MSc in Holistic Science. We have many of our MSc students on his course and also our MA students. So it's wonderful to welcome Rupert again. I'll just say a little bit about him. You probably know about him, but I think he's one of the most important scientists of our time. He's a great intellect and hugely intuitive and incredibly courageous. He's taking on the mainstream, showing convincingly, I think, using good experiment and scientific data that telepathy really exists, that there are morphic fields, that there's mind in nature, and many, many more things. He started his scientific life at Cambridge, where he was a biologist, Clare College, and spent a lot of time connected with Cambridge University. He's written about 80 technical papers, 10 books, and he's a fantastic speaker. So thank you for coming to this event, and you're going to have a wonderful time with Rupert. Welcome, Rupert.
Thanks, and it's very good to be here again.
Okay, now the complex one.
The science delusion is the belief that science already understands the nature of reality in principle, leaving only the details to be filled in. Basically, we've got it all figured out. And I think this is a terrible delusion. I think it's inhibiting scientific inquiry. It's causing the sciences to undergo a law of diminishing return. Ever increasingly expensive research is yielding fewer and fewer true discoveries and breakthroughs. It's something that's worrying a lot of people within the science establishment. And I think that part of the root of this is this dogmatic belief system which has taken over science. In the heart of science, there's a conflict between science as a method of inquiry, open-minded investigation of nature, hypothesis, experimental evidence, open debate, self-correcting, all that kind of thing, which many people think of as the way science is. It's actually a kind of ideal of the way science should be or ought to be, and it's an ideal which I share. But in reality, things are very different. And one of the reasons they're different is that for many people, science has become not just a method of inquiry, but a worldview. The kind of people who say, I don't believe in God, I believe in science, are people who've adopted the so-called scientific worldview and made that their basis of belief and understanding reality. And science is not meant to be a worldview. What's actually happened is that the sciences have been taken over by the materialist philosophy of nature. This takeover occurred in the 19th century, towards the end of the 19th century. And now the sciences are wholly owned subsidiaries of materialism. which is a philosophy of nature. Now, you can defend it as a philosophy, but it's not science. It's an overarching framework within which science is currently done. It's a paradigm, a model of reality. It consists of 10 distinct dogmas, and these dogmas are usually taken for granted by people who believe them without realizing they're actually believing something. Most people who believe these dogmas simply think they're the truth. And this makes them different from religious beliefs. People who have religious beliefs know they have a belief. People who have scientific beliefs don't know they have a belief. They just think they know the truth. And this underlies some of this strident fundamentalism that we've had a lot of, as scientific fundamentalism, that's become coupled to militant atheism in recent years. What I do in my book, The Science Delusion, is take the 10 dogmas of science and I turn them into questions and look at them scientifically, see how well they stack up if you examine them in the light of the evidence and think about them rationally, instead of taking them for granted. Most scientists take them for granted, not because they've thought about them, but because they haven't. And that's why it's important to bring them out into the light, so you can actually see what these assumptions are, and see how valid they are. It turns out that they're not valid, that every one of them, when it's turned into a question, opens up completely new ways of looking at the world, which I think would lead to a renaissance in science. I'm very pro-science, not anti-science, but I think science is not realizing anything like its full potential under its present system, stultified by dogma, imprisoned within rigid institutional frameworks, and dominated by fear. Most scientists think much more freely in private than they will do in public, because basically they're afraid of stepping out of line. Well, what are these 10 dogmas? I'll just run through them briefly, and then I'll examine 2 or 3 of them in more detail. I don't have time to look at all 10 this evening. First and foremost is the dogma that nature is mechanical or machine-like. And this became the dominant theme in science right at the beginning of modern science in the 17th century. It put all of science on the basis of a machine metaphor. The reason this is important is that before that, in the Middle Ages, in all the European universities, including our English universities of Oxford and Cambridge, the view of nature was that was taught everywhere was that nature is organic. The earth is alive. Animals and plants are truly alive. They're living beings. Animals are beings with souls. That's where, by the word animal, from the Latin anima, that's where the word comes from. And they have their own internal purposes, their own goals, and they're self-organizing. Now, by contrast, a machine has no purposes of its own. It doesn't organize itself. That's why it has to be designed by an external designer, a human designer, and made in a factory. So machines are not self-organizing and don't have their own purposes. And that's what makes them different. And in the 17th century, people thought, well, God's the machine maker and designer, like an engineer, a mathematical engineer, and creates everything in nature, but nothing has its own purpose. Nothing in nature has any purpose. That was why this was a radical break with the view of nature that went before, which was an animistic view of nature. There was a living God of a living world. Then there was kind of, after the 17th century, a mechanical God of a mechanical world. The second dogma is that matter is unconscious. This world machinery is made out of totally unconscious matter. The entire universe, the stars, the planets, everything is unconscious matter. Everything that's made out of matter is unconscious. And the only exception are human minds, and I'll come to that in a moment. Third, the laws of nature are fixed. The laws and the constants of nature have been the same ever since the Big Bang, and they will be the same forever. Fourth, the total amount of matter and energy is always the same. All the matter and the energy in the universe came into being suddenly in the Big Bang, and it's remained the same in quantity ever since, governed by the same laws. As my friend Terence McKenna used to say, modern science is based on the principle of give us one free miracle and we'll explain the rest. And the one free miracle is the appearance of all the matter and energy in the universe and all the laws that govern it from nothing in a single instant. Fifth, nature is purposeless. There are no purposes in nature. Teleology, the subject of the study of purpose, is the ultimate taboo within science. Evolution has no purpose or direction. We got here just by blind chance and the laws of nature. There's no purpose, there's no overriding goal in anything. Our lives are led in a purposeless universe that's going nowhere. Sixth, biological inheritance is material. Everything that we inherit, everything that any organism inherits, is inherited materially as genes, DNA of genes, as epigenetic modifications, chemical modifications of the genes, and as cytoplasmic inheritance. So it's all inherited materially. 7. Memories are stored as material traces inside your brain. Everything that you or any other animal remembers is stored physically, materially inside your head. Everything you remember about your childhood, where you went on holiday last year, what you had for breakfast this morning, all the skills you've acquired, like
Oops, also forgot to turn my big lamp on. Oh shit, that's okay, it's pretty bright in here, it's not gonna hurt anything right now. But I inadvertently mixed these colors a little bit too close to the original tone used for the background, or for the gradient of the clouds into the distance there, or further into the distance, most of them. It's pretty present clouds. But, so, next time we'll just do a lighter pink, a lighter pink, and a lighter pink, rather than almost mimicking the initial color set. But they are slightly lighter, and it does add a nice bit of depth to it already, and it gives it some texture and more flow. So I think I'm going to cut that, let that dry, and do something else today. But that's it for the moment. So thank you for watching. That's Adam Sturch broadcasting from the Mushroom Mansion, Taos, New Mexico, working on oil painting Space Mountain. Have a good day, Earth.